moment ago we talked about our strategic plan. Well, part of our strategic plan included portfolio projects. Now, portfolio projects were really an essential component of our efforts. The goal of the portfolio project, remember, is that we wanted to identify important work that could advance our district's work quickly, and we would really consider that a high leverage strategy. Now, portfolio projects are not designed to stay portfolio projects. They are designed where we put the spotlight on them, we put them under the microscope, and then the process and procedures that come from those portfolio projects turn into standard operating procedures. Well, this year we are actually going to wrap up 2 of our portfolio projects, and when we say wrap up, it doesn't mean we're going to quit doing them. It means that the work that we're doing is now really part of who we are as a school district and a part of that standard operating procedure. And so I would like for Mr. Caldwell to walk us through Project Hope, and then Mary Gaskins will walk us through leadership development.
So it is with great pleasure that I am hopefully talking about Project Hope for the last time. As Dr. Little said, Mary Gaskins said we're tying a bow on this one. Because an initiative is just that. It's a thing. And we tend to pilot initiatives and we tend to watch them float away from the pier, never to be seen again. And I think what we've shown over the last 2 years with Project Hope is that it has become ingrained in our standard operating procedures. So thanks for that introduction. It stole most of my thunder, but that's okay. Just a quick history lesson. In the 2017-18 school year, we found ourselves engaged in several conversations. There were separate conversations around social and emotional learning for students and supports there because we had suffered through a few tragedies in our district. We were also talking about student management procedures, particularly with respect to drug and alcohol offenses and how we handle those disciplines. And then the alternative educational services, which at the time was called Focus, and we were looking to repurpose that to make it a much more therapeutic and less punitive type environment. So we're having these separate conversations, and then we realize we're kind of all talking about the same things, just different sides of a triangle. So that's how the whole triangle came to be, because all of these situations lend itself to one another, and without any one of the 3 parts, then the triangle doesn't work. So I just want to very quickly tonight talk about some of our successes and some of our challenges with Project Hope, and again, reiterate the fact that that nothing that we've been doing is something we're going to stop. We're going to continue doing it, but we don't have to talk about it as something that's new or something that's an initiative. It's just our standard operating procedure. So the first part with respect to student management procedures, and again, this is the drug and alcohol offenses, and if you'll remember, prior to Project Hope, a student who had a drug or alcohol charge almost always, if he or she did not get expelled completely from school, wound up at what we then called Focus. There was some counseling that was provided, but basically what happened is that the students would spend some time there. They would come back to school. They would often recommit, and we just scratch our heads and go, gosh, I wonder why that happened. And so then we took this, what at the time I felt like was a very bold step, in that what if we had those students who had a drug or alcohol charge, and depending on the totality of the circumstances, we allowed that student to return back to school. But as a commitment to return back to school on probation to their home school, the parent and the student had to agree to several things. They had to agree that the student would go through pretty stringent counseling for drug and alcohol. The family had to agree to go through family counseling. And the student had to agree to be randomly drug tested for a year. So really the sanctions we placed on those students were more than we placed on them when they went to Focus at the time. But what it allowed is that student continued to be in the band, that student continued to take French 4, that student continued to do all the things that he or she had the privilege to do while at his or her home school. And so when we talk about a success rate, what that means, that 75% success rate for the 18-19 school years, that means that 75% of all the students who we deemed Project Hope students were successful, meaning that they've successfully completed. Well, by this time, they've all, the 75% have successfully completed because it's 2-year-old data. 75% of those students completed. For the 1920 school year, which again abruptly ended in March, 83% of the students had either successfully completed or were successfully engaged in that. And at this point, I need to share something with you that's probably pretty obvious. The counseling and the drug testing and all those things stopped in March with the onset of COVID. I'll also tell you that as we continue to move forward with our reentry plans, it is our plan next week to bring to the board several policies that may need to be reviewed, that may need to be adjusted, and one of those policies being our drug and alcohol policy. And so I'm planning on bringing that policy and perhaps some others for your consideration and possible review next week. So I want to tell you that right now, because we have not yet begun to drug test at this point. We would not have begun to drug test at this point in normal circumstances. But this year is anything but normal, so we feel compelled to discuss that policy and some others to get some guidance and direction. So that'll be coming next week as a part of our reentry conversations. For alternative educational services, it was renamed AES, and the overall goal of this, the overall vision, was a place where it's just, you just don't go there because you've been assigned there because of a discipline issue. Our goal was to have a true alternative educational school or facility where we could provide the type of education that students need. And so with that, we repurposed the way that program works, and Chris Rabin and his team were able to provide a lot of social and emotional supports for the students. I will tell you, Tracy Pender will come in just a few moments and talk about social and emotional learning supports district-wide. I'm speaking specifically about what happens at AES now. And so those students go through restorative practices. They do a lot of conflict resolution. They do a lot of community building. If you'll remember, we dealt strongly and swiftly with the what. You know, what a student did. If a student made this decision, then that forced us to make this decision. But we never got to the why. And so our whole goal was to, again, to not be that punitive place, but to be that therapeutic place and try to get to the why. So we've developed triage teams where every student, within a week or two period while at AES would have a team of professionals, and including the parents and including the students from time to time, to talk about their project, to set goals, to check progress of the goals. So, and what we've learned, fortunately, is through the COVID shutdown, those students didn't go away. They just didn't show up at AES. And we continue to work with those kids, and we were able to continue to provide those supports virtually. And I think that's very important to know that we did that now, and it's even more important to know as we talk about the future of AES as a true alternative educational service. Another thing that we're very proud of, and Chris Rabin is just over the moon with this when I talked to him about, give me some things to talk about, give me some highlights of your year. Well, in the 18-19 school year, he reports that 267 students who were eligible to earn credits, mainly high school, but we do have middle school students who can earn high school credits. 267 students earned a total of 246 credits. This year, or the 1920 school year, 228 students earned a total of 401 credits. That is a 63% increase. And keep in mind, excuse me, some of those students had worked through AES prior to the shutdown, but a lot of those kids remained on the rolls and remained being worked with the teachers from AES. And again, just an awesome 63% increase for the credits. And I think that lends itself and is telling of the social and emotional supports that are there, and the strategic ways that these students are being worked with, and getting to that why and not just the what. Moving forward, again, we want to continue to have a virtual presence post-COVID. I tried to pin Dr. Little down, and he would have no part of it. When I asked him one day, so when all this is over, we're still going to have virtual education, right? Because this really falls right in line with my vision of what, and others' visions of what AES looks like. So I really want to urge us to do that, because that does play a part in this alternative educational system for our students. Again, it's no longer an initiative. It is what we do, and we want to continue to fine-tune that and refine our practices there. And just to remind you that it is now a part of our normal course of business, a very integral part to providing educational opportunities for all of our students. So I am proud to say that this may be the last time we have to talk about this as an initiative, but hopefully I can talk about the results, the positive results that come at later dates from our new practices here.
I'd just like to say, I think that's one of the most important things that we've done in a long time, because that's been a gap for us. And I just thank you and thank your team for making that happen.
Thank you. I
So
will
that's-
tell you,
that's wonderful.
we talk about students who probably will be eager to go back to face-to-face learning, and I'm certain that's the case. I would also say there are students there that are having success now, virtually, that they've not had before. They're not dealing with particular challenges. They're not being bullied. They're not being made fun of. All the things that may have caused them to not be as successful face-to-face, they're now finding that success virtually. So I want to be sure that we continue to have that presence. Anything else? All right, thank you.